Imagine a big empty space covered in snow. It was like a frozen meadow with no signs of life. Right in the middle of it all stood something amazing, shining bright white like a beacon. As the clock struck midnight, the air was filled with the magical sound of jingling bells. I looked up high and saw something cool happening on top of a tree. Against the dark sky, which was really just the ceiling above us, two lines of light suddenly appeared, shining bright in the darkness. As I looked really closely, I gasped in shock. It was a huge sled, and it was being pulled by some seriously creepy creatures. The sled climbed up to the top of a tall fir tree, and then something weird happened. A dark figure jumped out of the sled, and I stumbled backward, almost losing my balance. The creature that landed in the snow with a big splash was enormous. At least 3 times taller than me. Imagine a creature that's kind of like a person, but totally weird. Its arms are super long and skinny, and it walks all hunched over, like it's about to drag its hands on the ground. This thing has 2 tiny red eyes glowing in the dark under its bony brow, and some scruffy gray whiskers hanging down from its chin that almost touch its legs. But what really makes it look crazy is what it's wearing: a bright red and white jacket, and a pointy hat, like something you'd see at a circus. And to make things even stranger, it's carrying a big axe and a sack slung over its shoulder. It's a pretty bizarre sight. Imagine running into a creepy version of Santa Claus in a video game. This freaky character, named Nicholas the Renegade, was designed to shock players. They probably thought we'd be terrified or burst out laughing when we saw it. But when I faced Nicholas alone, I didn't care about what the designer was thinking. I just wanted to defeat it. Nicholas opened its mouth, and its weird beard wiggled around as it got ready to talk. But I wasn't interested in hearing what it had to say. "Shut up," I muttered to myself. I drew my sword and charged forward through the snow. This was a big deal for me. I'd been playing sword art online for a year, and this was the first time my health or HP got really low. It stayed in the danger zone, and I was getting worried. When Nicholas finally died and exploded, leaving behind only its sack, I was relieved. But I was also out of recovery crystals, which meant I had no way to heal myself. It was a tough battle. I had just come closer to dying than ever before. But instead of feeling happy that I made it out alive, I felt kind of meh. It was weird. I thought I'd feel relieved, or excited, but nope. Instead I just thought, oh great, I'm still alive. As I put my sword away, the bag of presents that had been at stake exploded into a million pieces of sparkling light. It was pretty cool, but it didn't even seem to matter right then. I couldn't believe all the stuff the boss had just dropped. It all automatically went into my inventory, which was kind of overwhelming. I let out a big sigh, and slowly raised my hand to open the window. When it popped up, I was shocked at how many new items were in there. Swords, shields, cool jewels, sparkly crystals, and even ingredients for cooking. I started scrolling through the long list, searching for one thing in particular. Then, suddenly, it appeared on the screen. It was so casual, like "oh yeah, here you go," that it caught me off guard. The item was called the Sacred Stone of Rebirth. My heart started racing like crazy. It was like it had been frozen for months. But suddenly it was thawing out and coming back to life. I felt a surge of hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. Could it really be true? Could I actually bring Sachi back to me? What if all the people who died in Seiya, like Kita and Tetsuo, didn't really lose their souls after all? The thought sent shivers down my spine. Maybe, just maybe, I'd get to see Sachi smile again. My heart was racing like crazy. I knew my friend might yell at me, or call me out for my mistakes, but I didn't care. This time I was going to be honest with her, and tell her the truth. I wasn't gonna promise that she'd be safe forever, but I could promise to protect her with everything I've got. And I had been working hard to make myself stronger, just so I could keep her safe. My hands were shaking as I tried to grab something from my pocket. It took me a few tries, but finally, I managed to pull out the sacred stone. I stared at the egg-sized jewel hovering above my screen. It sparkled with all the colors of the rainbow, but I didn't care about its beauty right now. I urgently clicked on it, and hit the help button. "Sachi, Sachi." I called out her name, hoping she would answer, but deep down I knew something was terribly wrong. A message popped up in a simple font, explaining what the jewel could do. It said that if I used the revive command or said revive player name while holding the jewel, I could bring a player back to life. But there was a catch, I had to do it fast, within about 10 seconds of their death. Those 3 words, roughly 10 seconds, hit me like a punch to the gut. They meant that Sachi's time was up, she was really gone, and no matter what I did, she wouldn't come back. The thought kept echoing in my mind. Roughly 10 seconds, it wasn't enough time to save her. Imagine being in a virtual world, having the best time ever, and then boom, your character dies. But here's the freaky part. If you're using something called the nerve gear, your real brain can get hurt too. Like seriously hurt. It takes just 10 seconds for it to microwave your brain, after your character's health runs out. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what happened to Sachi. 1 minute she was there, and the next, her body vanished. The nerve gear on her head basically became a deadly trap. It made me wonder, did Sachi feel any pain when it happened? The moment of truth. What was going through her mind in those last few seconds? Was she angry at me until the very end? Suddenly a loud wail burst out of me. It sounded like an animal crying out in pain.
Vanessa, I couldn't control myself.
I grabbed the sacred stone that was floating above my window, and threw it at the snow with all my might. But I wasn't done yet.
Vanessa.
It screamed again, this time stomping on the stone with my boots over and over. But no matter how hard I tried to smash it, the jewel just kept shining back at me, looking calm and unaffected. It was like it was mocking me, refusing to show any emotion at all. I let out a mighty roar, and threw myself into the snow, scrambling around like a crazy person. I rolled back and forth, feeling like I was losing control. But it didn't matter, none of it mattered. Sachi's suffering, her pain and her death. All for nothing. My crazy battle against the Christmas boss was pointless too. Even the whole reason this world existed, trapping 10,000 innocent people inside, seemed meaningless now. It was like everything I had done was just a waste of time. It all felt so pointless. But in this moment I realized something important. Nothing in this virtual world really mattered. How long did I keep going on like this? I screamed and yelled. But it didn't feel like I was actually gonna cry. It was weird, my character in the game didn't even seem to have tears. I finally forced myself to stand up, brushed off the snow, and grabbed the stone I'd dropped. Then, I trudged back to the warp point that would take me to the area we came from. As I walked into the clearing, I saw that Klein and his team, Fur and Kazan, were the only ones left. The Divine Dragon Alliance was nowhere to be seen. I counted Klein's group to make sure everyone was okay as I approached him. He was sitting down, looking totally beat, just like me. We were both completely exhausted. I had a feeling that he wanted to solve things with the DDA in a one-on-one fight. But thinking about it didn't make me feel any strong emotions. As I walked up, he looked at me and seemed relieved for a second. But then he saw my face and his expression changed fast. His mouth scrunched up tight. "Kirito," he said softly, his voice sounding rough. I dropped the crystal onto Klein's lap. "This is the special item that can bring people back to life," I explained. "But it only works if someone dies right in front of you. So next time that happens, use it." I turned to leave, but Klein grabbed my coat. "Kirito, wait," he said, his voice shaking. Tears started streaming down his face and I couldn't help but stare. It was weird to see tough Klein crying like that. "You have to promise me you'll make it through this," he begged. "Even if everyone else dies, you have to keep going. You have to survive until the very end." I gently pulled my coat free from Klein's grip and said, "See you later." Then I walked away into the forest of wandering. The next thing I knew, I was back in my room at the inn on the 49th floor. It was already past 3 a.m. I sat there thinking, wondering what I should do next. The past month has been all about one thing. The Resurrection Stone. And guess what? It's real. But it's not what I was hoping for. I've basically made a fool of myself trying to get experience points and looking like a total joke. Things got so bad that I even lost my last friend. After thinking about it for a long time, I finally made up my mind. Tomorrow morning I'm going to face the big boss of this labyrinth, and see what happens. I had a plan. If I came out on top, I was going to take on the big cheeses on the 50th floor, and then the 51st. It was the perfect way to show that annoying clown who's boss. As soon as I made up my mind, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I sat back in my chair, waiting for morning to arrive. The moon shone through the window, casting an eerie glow, but as time passed, its light slowly moved and started to fade. Before I knew it, the gray light of dawn was creeping in, signaling a brand new day. I woke up feeling pretty amazing, considering it had been the worst night ever. I had no clue how long I'd been awake, but as I stood up from the chair I noticed the clock on the wall said 7,000 a.m. Just then, a weird alarm started blaring. I looked around the room, trying to figure out where the noise was coming from, but I had no idea what was making it beep. Something caught my eye. A purple marker was blinking in the corner of my vision. It was telling me to open my main menu. I waved my fingers to make it appear. As I looked through the menu, one tab really stood out, the one I shared with Sachi. It was glowing, which meant something new was inside. And that's when I saw it. A special timed alarm item waiting for me. I was scrolling through a bunch of stuff when I stumbled upon something weird, an audio message that was set to play today. It was like a special crystal and I pulled it out of the menu and put it on the table. As soon as I clicked on it, I heard a voice that made my heart skip a beat. It was Sachi. Her message said, "Merry Christmas, Kurito. By the time you hear this, I'll probably be gone. If I were here with you right now, I would have pulled out this crystal and had a super important conversation with you on Christmas Eve. But since I'm not sure how much longer I'll be around, I wanted to record a message for you. Don't get me wrong, I know you and the rest of the Black Cats are totally capable of handling tough situations. It's just that, well, let me start from the beginning. You're an amazing player, and it's cool to see everyone else getting better too. But I want to talk about something serious for a minute. Recently, something sad happened. A friend of mine from another guild passed away. We were actually pretty similar, we both like to play it safe and avoid any areas that might be super dangerous. But sometimes even when you're being careful, bad things can still happen. That's what happened to my friend. She was attacked by a monster when she was all alone, and it was just really bad timing. Here's what really hit me. To make it through this whole game, it's not about how tough your friends are. It's about you. If you don't want to survive, if you don't have the guts to keep going, you'll be in trouble. I'm not gonna lie. I was super scared when I first stepped into the wilderness, but that fear made me think, what's really important to make it out alive? I have to admit, I love living in the town of beginnings. All my friends from the Moonlit Black Cats group were actually people I hung out with in real life, and it was always a blast when we were together. But there was one thing, I never felt like going on hunts with them. And let's be honest, if you're not willing to take risks and fight, you're not going to survive for long. It's not like anyone else is to blame for my problems. Though the truth is, it's all on me. Here's the deal. It's all on me. Remember how every single night you'd tell me everything would be okay? You promised I'd always be safe and sound. But if something bad happens to me, I know you'll feel guilty. You'll think it's all your fault. And that's just not true. That's why I wanted to leave you this message. So you know that no matter what, it's not on you. Hey, I have a confession to make, it's all my fault. I set this message to send next Christmas as a challenge to myself, to see if I could wait that long. But here's the thing, I really want to spend time with you, especially during the holidays. Imagine us walking around town together when it's all snowy and magical. And honestly, I know you're super strong and can handle anything, which is one of the things I admire about you. I'll never forget the time I was hanging out in your room, and I woke up to see your window wide open right behind you. It got me thinking, why would you team up with us, but keep your true abilities a secret? To be honest, it still doesn't make sense to me, but I figured you'd eventually fill me in, so I decided to keep quiet and wait for the truth to come out. I have to admit, it made me really happy to see how strong you are. Knowing that gave me the courage to sleep next to you without being scared. And the thought that you might actually need me by your side made my heart skip a beat. It meant I was important, even if I can be a total wimp sometimes. So here's what I want to say. No matter what happens to me, I want you to keep moving forward. Don't give up, okay? Keep going, even if I'm not around anymore. I've got one big goal, make it to the end of this crazy game. I want to figure out why this world was even created, and why someone like me ended up here. And most importantly, I want to know why we met, you and me. That's all I'm hoping for. We've also got a lot of time on our hands. And it looks like these things can store a ton of stuff. Who knows what kind of adventures we'll have before it's all over. Hey there, it's Christmas time. That means it's time for a fun song. I'm gonna sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for you. Usually I'd pick a cooler song like Winter Wonderland or White Christmas, but I only remember the words to Rudolph, so why do I know all the lyrics to this one? I'll never forget what you said the other night. That everyone has a special job to do. You meant that every single person, including me, is here for a reason. That really made my day. It reminded me of this awesome song I love. It was like we were a team, like Rudolph and Santa Claus, but if I'm being totally honest, it felt more like you were giving me advice like my own dad would. I've always wondered what it would be like to have my dad sleeping next to me at night. He left when I was really young, so I don't know what that feels like. But one thing that makes me feel better is singing Christmas songs. Let me try one. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is a classic. You know, the one that goes like this. Rudolph had a super shiny nose. It was so bright that it glowed. The other reindeer would tease him and call him names. They wouldn't let him play with them. It wasn't fair or right. But then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa showed up and said, "Hey Rudolph, your bright nose can lead the way. Will you help guide my sleigh tonight?" After that, all the reindeer loved Rudolph and cheered for him. They thought he was a hero and would always remember his name. You know who's like Rudolph to me? You. Just like his shiny nose lights up the dark night sky. You make my life brighter and help me find my way when things get tough. That's a wrap, Carito. It was awesome meeting you and sharing in your adventures. Thanks for everything.